This podcast contains explicit language.
Holy merd.
This episode of Dorking Out is brought to you by
Scribable, audiobooks transcribed for those of you not on the go. Love novels but don't want the hassle of listening to people talk? Then read our printed audiobooks and get the same enjoyment millions of Audible customers the world over now enjoy. With our patented Print Now technology, you can get great fiction from beloved authors from Stephen King to Dan Brown, nonfiction from Sheryl Sandberg and Malcolm Gladwell, and classics from Jane Austen and E.L. James. Scribable, audiobooks transcribed for you.
Houston, flight is go.
Milo, let's go. SPM. Safety contact.
From Assignment X, thesoniashow.com, and Amalgamated Storytelling, this is the Dorking Out Show, the podcast for people who love stories from movies, TV, books, podcasts, and everywhere else.
Welcome to episode 98. This is the Who Reviews the Reviewers edition. With me today is my co-host, Emmy Award-winning filmmaker and nerd author, Christopher Allen Smith.
And with me today is my co-host, professional writer and author of The Sonia Show, Sonia Mansfield. On this episode, we're going to be going back a bit to a format we haven't used in a while. We are doing more than one segment. First up, that's right, we're kind of doing a little blast from the past, and we're going to explain it later. First up, reviews and reviewers. We got our first review on a podcast that reviews podcasts. And let us just say that it was not a thrill ride. It did not keep us on the edge of our seat. And it was not worth the price of admission. But more on that soon. In our second segment, we talk a bit about what we've been dorking out about, what's going to happen with the show, and some changes that are coming in the months ahead.
Are we getting a new host?
We will find out later. This is a very radio-type tease that I am just going to let hang out there. You people will have to listen to the end of the show to find out what the mystery is. All that and nothing else. That is everything that we are talking about.
That's what else do you people want?
That's what we're talking about on the show when we come back.
Hey, want more Dorking Out?
Yep.
You can visit our website at dorkingoutshow.com.
You can.
And you can like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter.
On Twitter.
Do you listen to us on iTunes?
Yep.
It's cool.
It's cool.
We won't tell anyone.
Nope.
Please, take a few minutes out of your busy day of pretending to work while you watch cat videos to give us a review on iTunes.
Cat videos!
For some reason, iTunes really cares about reviews, and it helps us attract more listeners, and you want us to have more listeners and be popular and cool, don't you?
Yep.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
And now, on with the show.
Yeah. Well, it's finally happened. To us. But enough about us. What do you think of us? Well, we found out what somebody thinks of us. The Dorking Out Show has been reviewed, and it was not fun.
Not the iTunes reviews.
Those are great.
Not that kind of review.
We love those, mainly because we wrote 3/4 of them. But really,
that's not true.
That's not true. We love those, but a podcast that shall remain nameless until later in this segment when we want to bag on them in a very childish way, recently reviewed this illustrious show. And that got us thinking about reviews, what they mean, what their worth is in the age of the Twitter quick response, and how we do reviews. This leads, as many things do, to an anxiety-ridden daydream I had about my book, and it got me wondering if, deep down, the length of time it's taking me to finish the stupid book, Jet Jurgens and the Infinity Key, you cannot find it on Amazon yet, is related to my fear of being torn apart by reviewers. Short answer, yes! That is definitely something that's happening. So...
Wait, that's the short answer?
Yes, that's the short answer.
Got it.
So, Sonia.
Yeah.
Talk to us about reviews, about reviewers, what you like about reviews. We've tried to kind of pull the curtain back on the show about us as reviewers by kind of naming a lot of the things that we think are really good, letting people take the temperature of if their tastes synchronize with ours. So if
Right.
We used
to have a segment called like, "Why Should I Listen to You?"
Right. Which I think
And
we're going to go back to. We're actually in segment 2, we're actually going to talk a little bit about that. But anyway, so what do you think of reviews and reviewers? And
I would say that I definitely have my favorites. It's tricky because here's the thing. Good thing you asked me.
all right.
With Twitter and Facebook and WordPress and all these blogs and like literally everyone thinks they're a critic.
Right.
Like everyone's just putting their opinions out there all the time. And that's fine. Take it, leave it, whatever. I am an Ebert girl. I grew up reading Roger Ebert. Like his reviews to me are like I'm doing the fingers kissing thing. Like I think he's the best. And one of the things I always loved about Ebert is he would tell you what the movie was about, which I think is key, by the way. I don't think a lot of people do that.
Which sometimes, a lot of people on this show unfortunately do that. And
Yeah.
I would like to apologize to our listeners because
I need like a basic idea of what the movie is about. He points out what he loved about it and why he loves it. And when he criticizes it, it's very pointed and, he explains why that didn't work for him. And I always feel like he takes the audience into consideration too. Like, so the big famous one that Siskel and Ebert disagreed about, and I think we've talked about it on the show before, was in an episode of At the Movies, they reviewed Full Metal Jacket and Benji the Hunted. Do you remember this one? And
no,
Ebert,
I'm too young for that episode, but I've heard about it.
Ebert
Wink.
gave a thumbs up to Benji the Hunted and a thumbs down to Full Metal Jacket. And him and Gene Siskel, got into a huge argument about it because it was the idea of like, why should Benji the Hunted be rewarded for aiming low and hitting it when Full Metal Jacket aimed high and missed? And that's a valid point, but I also appreciate that Ebert always considered the audience for which the movie is made.
Right.
And and he's just an amazing writer.
Right.
And you could always, and he was consistent. That's the other thing. I feel like he always had a consistent voice.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like you wouldn't necessarily be surprised by an Ebert review. And maybe that's a good thing. Like, you kind of, as you get to know him, as you read him over the years, you kind of know what he likes and doesn't like. And that's awesome because that's what you want. Like, he's consistent.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. I think Ebert, he's a fantastic critic that I did kind of, when I did written reviews and when I've tried to style myself as somebody who thinks about culture, examines culture, and talks about it, because he, there's kind of two kinds of critics, roughly. There's I would say, Ebert critic, which is almost kind of like a consumer interest critic, which is, should you waste your time on this movie? Should you spend your money on this movie? Should you spend your time on this movie? And if you're looking for XYZ, does this movie provide that? It's a very open, not critically easy, but it's a very kind of balanced, measured, nuanced, meaningful thing. Because I think criticism gets a really bad rap because kind of the second broad type of critic, which is the artistic examination critic, which, while they have their place, there are a lot of critics that love to set themselves up as some sort of arbiters of taste or arbiters of meaning or value or whatever. And a lot of times it turns into they're just going to take, if a lot of, kind of like those douchebag rock band or, rap band fans who like people until while they're unknown and good.
Right.
But as soon as they become known and good and the wide public likes them, then they take their shots at them, and then they, there is that kind of critic.
You're talking about hipsters.
Exactly. There is that kind of critic that it kind of like, well, if this is a comic book movie, I'm going to take a couple comic book shots at it. They're the kind of critics that...
This is really big with horror movies, by the way.
With horror movies, with comedies,
romantic comedies,
with a lot of different. They're the people that shoot down most comedies, shoot down most horror films, but then love the crap out of Three Billboards Out of Ebbing, Missouri type critics. Basically, anybody that likes Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri, those are the critics that are just they're performing their act of reviewing something rather than, I think, working hard to give a real understanding to the movie and a real flavor to their listeners or readers about what they might like or not like. And I'm thrilled that you brought up that Full Metal Jacket, Benji the Hunted thing with Siskel and Ebert, because that's a perfect encapsulation of what this kind of critic does and what I think we try to do, which is, and I talked a little bit about this in our Big Trouble in Little China deep dive, which is sometimes a movie's just not for you. And when it's not, and when you know it's not, there's no reason to take a bat to it. One of the reasons that we don't review a lot of horror movies is because a lot of times there's just something about the horror genre that I'm not interested in. And it doesn't do a lot of good for us to sit down and start reviewing a bunch of horror movies when 9 times out of 10, I will give some sort of review like, meh, it was all right. It's all right.
Well, I like what you said about critics giving an understanding of the movie, like helping people understand why the movie is good, why the movie is bad. But also, I think good critics give it context.
Right.
And their opinions are also have context. And I don't think, I feel like with the whole Rotten Tomatoes thing is just boiling it all down to something they're simplifying it to a point where it's just too, I'm trying to think of too bite-sized,
too black and white, maybe too black and something that's black and white when the nuances are not black and white.
Yeah, okay, so as of this recording, at one point, Black Panther had 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Right.
People were very excited. And a guy from the Irish Independent gave it a bad review, said, he doesn't fight enough bad guys.
Right.
And that's his bad review.
Right.
That's his only complaint. And so now the movie's not 100%. It's at 98 or whatever.
Oh my God.
And people are lighting this dude on fire. And that's fine. Maybe he's an asshole. I don't know. But the idea that the percent has become such a big deal on Rotten Tomatoes, and that, and then there were all these DC fans that were we're going to go on there and pan the movie because our team makes bad movies. I don't know what the goal is there, but it's just so
it's weird.
Stupid and weird, and I don't understand. The thing is, when I read a movie review, it's not the end all be all for me. It's not necessarily even a deal breaker for me. I'm reading it to see what did they think?
Right.
And here's what the movie's about, and here's maybe why they didn't like it, or here's why they did like it, and then I apply that to myself,
right,
and decide if this is the movie for me.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. And I think that's what criticism could do. I still really do rely on Rotten Tomatoes. And I think you and I are different than most movie-going people because we see quite a few movies a year. I think the average person that goes to the movies goes 3 or 4 times a year, if that.
Right.
We go twice a month, 3 times a month, sometimes more. So I do find myself using Rotten Tomatoes a lot, but it's not a situation where, oh, it's 100%. I'm going to the movie. Oh, it's 98%. Well, I don't think I will be going to see this movie.
Forget it. It's obviously
those 2%.
garbage.
It's a little bit to set my expectations and to set what's going up, which, it's for me to figure out, excuse me. It's for me to figure out there is a difference in expectation to going to a film-going experience if the number is 90, 40, or 10. You know what I mean?
Right.
I cannot think, and I think it's interesting. I think I would really be interested in a study like this. I cannot think of a movie that came out that scored below 20 that I've ever liked. You know what I mean?
I would really have to dig in, but I'm sure I have some.
Maybe. There's a few between 20 and 40. I think there's a lot between 40 and 60, and it's at 60 that, the fresh meter starts looking fresh or whatever. So there is a lot of, like Man of Steel is famous for being kind of in that muddy middle. So there are a lot of movies that are valuable, and you should go out and see them, and I am excited a lot of times when a movie that I'm wanting to see, excited to see, if it's got a number over 90, it's like, oh, okay, this is really going to be, I'm excited. This is really going to be fun because, it's, a lot of people have watched it and they're liking it. And there is something to be said. And this is maybe where I'm going against the current grain of film criticism or TV criticism. There is something to be said for a large aggregated feedback of a show or of a movie, as long as it's not gamed or screwed with by people with, agendas, brigading
Right.
agendas. We've seen this. I was looking at the Rotten Tomatoes audience score for The Last Jedi today. It's a 48. That movie is not a 48 movie. It's just not. You might not like it, you might not love it, it might irritate you, but it is not this mediocre POS. I have been watching.
Yeah, but isn't a 48 then representative of that it is so split?
Well,
that people walked in and either they super loved it or they're just meh, or they're not?
I really don't think so. I think that because the audience scores across a lot of these things are almost always higher than critic scores. Because people who select themselves to go to movies and pay their own money are selecting for movies they want to see, they're already wanting to like. Every independent score, like cinema score or that kind of thing from audiences are, very positive or largely positive for The Last Jedi. And we see this a lot on the Internet Movie Database where people really love a movie or really don't like a movie. So they get their friends and they communicate on the net and they vote something really up or they vote something really down. That's why, as much as I love The Shawshank Redemption, there have been years where The Shawshank Redemption is the most loved movie on the Internet Movie Database. Number one, over Citizen Kane, over Godfather, over all these other movies. It's like, I like that movie. It is not the best movie ever made. Anyway.
But that's not the question.
That's true.
Right?
You're
asking people what they love.
That's true, but when they're and
do I love Citizen Kane?
But here's what I'm circling back to is the Black Panther movie. The audience score was 100, then it went down to 99, 98, 97, 96. Now it's at 94, meaning I believe this kind of dumb brigading is having an effect. So that's why I think, because there are these weird fan subcultures, there is this, I think people are starting to revert back a little bit to finding critics that they like, finding reviewers that they like, and paying attention to them.
Yeah. Who do you like?
I like Roger Ebert. Unfortunately, he's no longer working. I don't know why.
Whatever happened to that guy?
I don't know. Anyway, his website's still there. People are still writing for it, but apparently he's got better things to do. I don't know. Anyway.
I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to start crying.
Anyway, why? What happened?
Don't be a dick.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just trying to be funny, and I was accidentally a dick, and that happens a lot. Anyway.
Accidentally.
Dana Stevens. That's right. Usually, when I'm a dick, I am 100% committed, fully intending to be a dick. Anyway, Dana Stevens from Slate. She's on the Cultural Gab Fest. I really like her. She's... I don't know. She reminds me a lot of Roger Ebert. She's got a very erudite, brisk, clear writing style, but she's not one of these hoity-toity, self-important critics that just kind of drive me up the wall. She's not performing her critical faculties the way a lot of these snotty ones do. We've talked about this before. It's kind of turned into a running joke, but not really. Jeff Bond, who is doing a lot of the talking on our Star Trek episodes. I love him to death. Alexandra August, she does the Game of Thrones podcast, and she's doing the Disco Trek podcast, and she's also on our Star Trek episode. Listening to her, she's kind of the new kind of critic where they'll watch something and then they will take it apart piece by piece, beat by beat, and really dig deeply into it. Like Roger Ebert or Dana Stevens, they do 1,000 words, this 50,000 foot level. Here are the big beats. Here's the big tone. Here are the big moments of my, here's my reaction. Boom, we're done. We're out. Alex just digs so deep into these things and, character motivations and actors, she goes into production. She goes into what might have happened in the script room. And it's great. I love it. And then I've been finding myself listening more and more to Grierson and Leach. It was from the New Republic. There are a couple of critics that I just like listening to. It's funny. I was listening to them 5 minutes before we came on mic, reviewing 50 Shades Darker.
50 Shades Free.
50 Shades Free. I'm never going to see that movie, but listening to them talk about it and take it apart was mwah. It was really fun.
Oh my God, we probably should have saw it and reviewed it.
No.
How funny would that have been? We didn't read the books. We'd never seen the other movies.
We could, but I just I
don't want to though, because it looks so terrible.
It does. But who are your favorite critics? Talk to me about your favorite critics.
These are the two that popped into my mind immediately because they are kind of my go-to critics, and they're both from F This Movie, and one is Patrick Bromley, and the other is Adam Riskey. They both write for F This Movie, and they are the ones that I always look to see what they think about the movies that are coming out. Their opinions matter to me, and I want to know what they think. And I think I've been listening to F This Movie for so long now and been reading the site that, kind of like Ebert, I have a sense now of their voice and their tastes, and I can use that to kind of gauge whether or not I agree with them or disagree with them and like the movies that they like and things like that. And I mean, they might be they're my Ebert. Right.
Yeah. I really like them too. Oh, I wish I could remember. There was one time I felt very proud of us on this show because I think we reviewed some movie before they did, and I think we were not as enthusiastic about it. It felt like one of those movies where it was up in the 90s. This might have been 3 Billboards, maybe not.
Anyway, it probably was.
Anyway, where everybody was loving it, and you and I were like, I don't know.
Right.
Not really loving it. And then 3 or 4 days later, their review came out, or Patrick Brownlee's review came out, and it was just beat for beat, kind of what we said, and it was like, hey, look at that.
Yeah.
we
He's
had it
also
right.
he also does something else that Ebert used to do that I super love, which is he champions smaller, lesser known movies.
Right.
That there's so much going on now. There's so much out there. I just can't keep track. And I appreciate that somebody whose tastes I respect is kind of going through these smaller projects, these smaller movies, and giving me the heads up of what's good.
Exactly. Because, one thing we say from time to time on this show, but maybe we need to say it again, is we do not review movies we think we're not going to like. Because there's so many movies out there.
Well,
that's the thing.
I don't want to waste our time telling you about 50 Shades Freed. It's shitty.
Or you want to go see it and why listen to us? And it's kind of like, there's 500 shows on television to get through.
More on that in topic 2.
That's right. There's there's so much to get through in pop culture now. And we do not have the luxury of running a website where people pay us to talk about stuff. We only try to pick things that either we think are going to be interesting and important, or that we're going to be kind of watching anyway and we like, and we just want to talk about it. More on that in topic 2 as well.
Yeah.
So
what I wish I had still was when I would read Roger Ebert. They used to run his reviews syndicated in the Contra Costa Times. Mm-hmm. And they used to also run his movie Answer Man column. Mm-hmm. And I used to read his reviews. I used to watch the show, and I used to read the movie Answer Man column. And whenever he would mention movies that I just had never seen, I used to write it down. And I had a list of movies that I wanted to see or felt I needed to see because Ebert talked about them. And I would take that list with me to the video outlet and rent, I would get my 2 movies, and I would be like, well, let's see which 2 I can find. And just totally blind, based on a mention.
Do you remember any of those movies?
Some were foreign. Some were old. God, what were they?
I think the answer might be no.
Well,
all right.
I know. Here's
fine.
the thing. I know I did it, but I'm pretty sure that's how I saw some of the Hepburn Spencer Tracy movies. Which one? Desk Set or something like that. Just
Adam's
old
Rib?
movies. Yes, it was Adam's Rib. Thank you.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Hey, look at that.
That's, that I saw that. That's how I saw the original Odd Couple, which is still one of my favorite movies. What other foreign movies? I think that's how I saw The Bicycle Thief.
Maybe I shouldn't review movies because I have to admit I still have not seen The Bicycle Thief.
Oh, well, you should.
There's a lot of French 50s, 60s, new wave important movies.
Right.
That I have I'm not sure I've
I'm
ever
sure.
I'm not sure I've ever seen a Truffaut
I am
movie.
100% sure that's how I saw Maltese Falcon and Casablanca.
Oh, Casablanca. We should do on one of our deep dives. We need to find somebody great and talk about Casablanca because goddamn, that movie just
it's perfection.
It holds up so well. There's only
perfection.
One person I've ever met that truly did not like it and tried to talk it down to me, and it was just oh, honey, you don't. And I don't mean to be condescending and kind of sexist in the way I say that, but it's just
there's some friend.
That line,
David has a friend who doesn't like it, and I was like, he's crazy. It's a legit perfect movie.
Well, that's what it was. I
was I think he's just trying to be argumentative. He's trying to be contrarian.
Exactly. That's the thing. I get it. Is there are people that it's just not for them. There are movies like this for me where it's just everybody just loves it like crazy, but it just doesn't resonate. And this is another thing that I kind of when I kind of like movie aggregation discussions is Casablanca, it might not be for me, but obviously it stood the test of time. Obviously the vast majority of people that watch it love it like crazy. So when, and this person was trying to, I don't get it. It just didn't seem this, and they were trying to actually pick it apart, and it was just like, oh my God, just stop. Like if they were to say, and I've said this, oh, it just wasn't for me. I just didn't get it. Okay, I got it. I can respect that. But it was just kind of like they were trying to talk out 70 years of people loving this movie. Like they were setting up their arguments to talk each and every person out of liking this movie. And it was just like, that is a Herculean task I don't even want to get near.
Right.
So, speaking of reviews and reviewers that we are not all that thrilled with, now I guess it's time for us to talk about us taking our medicine. Earlier in January, I was doing a search on Dorking Out to make sure the stuff was still coming up in the feeds and everything was going all right, and I came across a podcast deceptively titled Podcast Rodeo, because there was no cowboys, no rodeo aspect anywhere connected with this podcast.
So disappointing.
Incredibly disappointing.
No cowboys.
No cowboys, no bulls, no rodeo clock to see how long. I was wondering if it might be a thing where he like gets on a bull and sees how long he can talk about a podcast while he's bucking on a bull.
That's
something.
I think it's called Podcast Rodeo because he starts a podcast and then he sees how long he can listen to it.
I guess if I were not so irritated by his deconstruction of one of our episodes when I was sick, by the way to kick people while they're down. Dave Jackson.
You have
Dave Jackson.
Very thin. You have a very thin skin.
I am actually kind of performing my outrage because while it was not fun to listen to Dave Jackson, who you can find at Learn to Podcast, a very condescending Twitter title, I would like to say. Twitter name, Learn to Podcast. While I'm kind of performing my irritation, you know what? I gotta take it. It was not fun.
We dish it out.
It was not fun to listen to, but we dish it out. We were, we crap like crazy on a million things, and he listened to the podcast. I am a little heartbroken to hear that he was not, a lot of what we try to do on the show, the kind of humor and the strange, the fake, get sponsors and all that kind of stuff and the whatever. It didn't
work
quite
for
land.
him. That's okay.
It didn't work for him. And it is one of those things where I am giving Dave Jackson, if that is your real name, a kind of
that's your real name.
Kind of a ration of shit. But I have to admit, after listening to what he had to say about the beginning of our show, we did kind of tighten things up a bit. We did kind of, move things around and tweak things and whatever. So, yeah, there's that. And that...
Can I tell you, over on the Sonia Show blog, I have an entire page dedicated to my bad reviews and angry comments. So, I can take it.
I don't have the courage for that.
I have a few here if you would like me to read some.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, here's one that from a commenter that said, "You look like a cute girl, but you write more like an angry guy without a lot of education." Here's someone who just wrote,
"He's not wrong." No, sorry.
You are fat and ugly and a dummy. Here's one time I wrote a celebrity gossip column for the San Francisco Examiner, and I made a joke about Michelle Duggar from like 18 Kids and Counting. I said that she treats her vagina like a clown car. And another conservative news site picked up my column, and they didn't like my joke. And they said, "My guess is that Sonia has had a few abortions and is dealing heavily in cognitive dissonance, or sadly may not be able to have children and has some sort of envy syndrome.
Oh, well,
I have kids.
this is Dorking Out, where we ask the hard questions. Sonia, how close to the mark did they get it? You know, we just talked about how Dave Jackson actually did hit it a little bit close to the mark when it came to the beginning of our show. How close did?
That's not even remotely close.
I know.
And here's my favorite. I got one more. I wrote a post once about how Charlie Sheen is an asshole because he's an asshole.
How controversial could that be?
Right. Well, here we go. If we are able to keep our freedom, we need more assholes like Charlie Sheen.
Oh,
by the way, Sonia,
Jesus.
what have you done to expose the 9/11 conspiracy?
Oh!
Take cheap shots at Charlie Sheen.
Oh.
Just following along with big media. They are now giving you permission to badmouth them. And just like the sheep you are following along. That is so brave. Charlie has risked everything for your freedom and your silly blog.
Including hypodermic needles.
That one is my favorite.
And prostitutes by the truckload.
Way, Charlie Sheen has risked everything for our freedom.
God. You know what? I do have to step back. But actually, you know what? That reminds me of the one huge... I was so dumb when I did this. Because I didn't keep the letter. That reminds me of the one huge piece of feedback I got from a legit... I don't know if I've ever told you the story. Hollywood director.
Ooh, I can't wait to hear.
So I'm going to Google this person's name. Joe Carnahan. Let's see. Let's talk about Joe Carnahan for a moment. He's actually done some pretty good stuff. He directed The A-Team, which was a lot of fun. I don't know if we talked about it on the show. But
I've never seen that.
That's a fun movie. He did, all right, Smoking Ace. Oh, geez. All right, maybe he hasn't. Hold on. Wait a minute.
Oh, Smoking Ace.
Oh, yeah, he did Narc, which a lot of people like. A-Team. He did The Gray, which a lot of people like. He is a producer on The Blacklist, which I don't watch. Okay, whatever. Anyway, what I was going to say is he came out with a movie in 1998 called Blood, Guts, Bullets, and Octane, which is a
I know of that movie.
It's a very subtle title for a very subtle movie.
I actually think I did see that one. That's why I had that reaction of, ew.
Right. Okay, good. See, thank you. I took that movie apart. I think I was actually snarkily proud. Sometimes I'll admit I have fallen into the trap that movie reviewers sometimes do, and I really try not to do it anymore, where when they really don't, they almost want to not like a movie so they can come up with all these clever ways of taking it apart and poking holes in it. It's a really snotty thing to do. But back in 1998 and 1999, I was an incredibly snotty person. Thank God those days are past. But I said that it was something like watching Blood, Guts, Bullets, and Octane was like watching David Mamet and Quentin Tarantino get in a fight over a typewriter in which they both lost. I was very proud of myself. Very happy, which is why I can recall that line.
I think the real loser
20 years later
are the viewers.
That's right. That was probably the next sentence. I was, and maybe still am a little hacky sometimes when it comes to doing stuff like that. Anyway, so like a couple weeks later, like a month or two, or it felt like a while later, I get this email from him and just going off on me. But here's the thing. He does the thing that I'm proud to say that you and I are not doing, where it's kind of
he didn't create a whole podcast episode around it.
That's right. That's right. And they call us out on it. No. He actually what have you made? Until you make a movie, I think you should be, quiet down and, keep your opinions to yourself until you've seen how blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, that is not how this works. You don't have to make a $20 million, Quentin Tarantino ripoff movie before you can start talking about film. Give me a break.
Right.
Stop being such a baby. That movie did launch his career. It did get him a lot of exposure.
Yeah.
He has this kind of reputation as this kind of hard ass, hard charging, hard driving, kick ass Quentin Tarantino type light guy. And all right, have fun. But it's just you hear a lot of filmmakers when they get their films taken apart or not loved enough for their, take this stance that somehow they're above reproach, they're above critiquing or criticism because, people that don't like their stuff have never made a movie. Well,
right.
Quit being a baby. That's the way it is. This is the business we've chose.
It's tough. Like, it's tough when you've created something and you're putting it out into the world and people can shit on it. They just can.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. And you have to develop kind of a thick skin and take, what can you learn from it and move on.
Right.
That's just the way it is.
Right.
And, it sucks that, that guy probably thinks his movie's really great and you didn't like it. Who can, dude, move on.
Yeah.
Like,
which
take, if anything, your review probably hit some nerves, clearly.
Yes.
Of things that he knows deep down are true. Kind of like our friend from Podcast Rodeo rips up that, we take too long to get to the subject. He didn't like all the parody ads, whatever. And we're like, gosh, maybe maybe the beginning of our podcast is too long.
Yes. I was a little irritated,
I'm
I
bummed
still think he's right.
It's the bummer that he picked an episode that I don't think is representative of us, but what are you going to do? That's the deal. You put your shit out there and people can like it or not like it.
Right. Now, one thing I will say that I was irritated about it, but, we are taking our medicine and we absorb these blows and we did change the beginning to track along with this, is I think that was that run of shows where I was talking about having a cough. It's like, we tried to cut out all the coughs and whatever. And he says, oh, you don't need to say that. Why are you taking time to say that? Even though I know if you didn't say that and there was a cough, you would get a ration of shit for it because, people just want to jump on every hum and background pop and whatever.
Right.
So it's kind of like, yes, I know you were trying to avoid people being hypercritical, but you shouldn't have done that, even though I know the reason you're doing it is probably legit. Anyway, So, yeah, it was, And to circle back to what you're saying, that probably brings us to the final thing that I want to talk about. That I thought about when I first listened to Dave Jackson review of our show from the deceptively named Podcast Rodeo. Have I already made that joke? I think I have. Oh my God, he's right. We're repeating ourselves. Anyway, I think, I have been trying for a while to write a book and I'm back to making progress. I'm on the home stretch, but I really do think part of the delay from this book is, part of it is I haven't written anything for 10 years and just getting those muscles working back again so I can write something that doesn't make me scream when I read it. That's part of it. But the other part of it is, you and I have been looking at the stage of pop culture creation for 25 years now in a serious way, 30 years now in a serious way. When you create something that you want to put out there and say, like when you write a book and think about, okay, this book would be in this section of the bookstore and it would be theoretically sitting beside these books, is what I'm putting out there anywhere close to any of those? And that that question will keep you up at nights. I swear to God. And there are times when you're kind of out there and you're creating and you're thinking, wow, I think there is something here. I think you kind of look at it in the one light. I think there really is something here. I think I can do this. And then you look at it in other things and it's like, oh my God, I guess, what was his name from American Idol? William Hong or whatever?
Yes.
It's like, A, I can't do this, and B, I'm so clueless and bad at it that I can't even see that I can't do this.
That's ridiculous.
And I'm spending hundreds of hours deluding myself, which is just frightening. So yeah, this
and that's
is
not true.
You'll see. Well, we'll see. Thank you for saying that. But that is the other thing is, we live in a world as creators sometimes where we have a cocoon of people around us where they'll read your stuff, and if they really don't like it, they'll figure out a way to tell you maybe somehow. But sometimes you get those people that you like and you're friends, and they give you something, and it's so far off the mark that you can't really say anything. Your only legit feedback would be, drop this like a hot rock and never touch it again. This is so far from what it needs to be. You are wasting every minute of your life that you're working on this thing. You've just got to stop. And that, I mean, who has the balls to say that to any kind of person trying to create something? And the other thing is... Apparently
Dave Jackson.
That's right.
No, I'm just kidding.
You son of a bitch, Dave. Anyway, no.
We're kidding, Dave. We're kidding.
Don't love you, Dave, but we understand you have your role to play. So yeah, excuse me. And the other thing, the last thing I was going to say, and this is something that we should think about as reviewers. Sometimes things come out and people are not ready for them. They're not loved in their time. They are not engaged with. People's head spaces are in a different spot, so they can't see what's right in front of them. A classic case in point is It's a Wonderful Life. One of the greatest movies ever made. A fantastic, famous, I believe, studio-ending bomb when it came out. Mm-hmm. There are times where all of the critics are wrong. All of their, they don't understand what they're seeing. And, like Blade Runner. Actually, here's another example. Blade Runner, people didn't get it. Critics, really good critics that were learned in the history of film, learned in all this stuff, did want to like, movies, took that movie apart, didn't like it, and it took 10 years before people started liking that movie and bringing it back in, and now it's such a classic that they made another one of them that was just as good and bombed just as badly.
So you heard it here first, you guys. This podcast is basically It's a Wonderful Life or Blade Runner.
Oh, I wish, but no. I am not gonna. I know enough about. I am enough.
No, it's more like Big Trouble in Little China.
That's right. That's right. Where it bombed at the time, and on years of reflection, I'm still not that into it. So
everyone else is.
That's right. Everyone else is. So that is our big, hairy, disorganized, ridiculous discussion of reviews, reviewers, what we feel like when we're reviewing things, what scares the crap out of us when we feel like we're going to be reviewed, and a little light razzing of the son of a bitch known as Dave Jackson. Learn to podcast, dummy! That's the name of it. No, that's not the name of his podcast.
I don't know if Dave Jackson knows what Charlie Sheen has done for his freedom.
Excuse me. Sorry. You know what? Fuck it. I'm leaving all these coughs in. If you're going to make fun of me for taking the coughs out, all the coughs in.
I'm going to cough too.
That's right. No. Dave Jackson, he runs a site called School of Podcasting. He's actually, he has another podcast called School of Podcasting that's been around since like 2011. So he's some sort of learned authority and force in the industry, unfortunately. But you know what? That's the way it is. We took our medicine. We don't have to be happy about it. So
it wasn't cough medicine.
as is painfully clear.
Take that, Dave.
That's right. All right. With all of that being said, now we are on to topic 2. You do the intro. Maybe we should have gone to the school of podcasting.
Topic 2. What we're dorking out about this week. Or this month, because we haven't done this segment in a while.
You know what?
Or this year.
We could do, yeah,
this year. What we're dorking
year.
out about this year. Where should we start? I have a lot of things I've been kind of watching and dorking out about, but do you want to go first?
No, why don't you go first?
Okay. So, like everyone else, I've been kind of dorking out about the Winter Olympics. Have you been watching any?
I watched some. I like the luges. I like but there's, I don't know. I'm just not a sports guy, and
yeah.
It's weird because back in the 80s, I used to watch them. I wouldn't say a lot, but I would watch them. And now that everything is super crystal clear, super spectacular, super whatever, I just don't care. I don't know what it is.
Well,
anyway.
I'm a 40-something white lady, so it's my job to like pumpkin spice, Beyonce, and ice skating. So I've been watching the ice skating.
You know what? You're not wrong. I saw a thing on Meet the Press today where they broke down the demographics of people watching the Olympics. I'll just put this as delicately as I can. It's mostly chicks. It's mostly old chicks.
That was so delicate.
That's right. That one's for you, babe.
And chicks appreciate things that are delicate.
Chicks dig the Olympics. All right, sorry.
Yeah. So I have been watching that. We've also been watching a lot of Blue Planet 2 on BBC America, which is amazing. The footage they get is amazing. If you guys aren't watching it, you should be watching it.
Is Blue Planet 2 the other Earth on the other side of the sun that we can't see because it's hidden by the sun?
Yes, and by the way, over there, Hillary Clinton is president.
And Dave Jackson loves our podcast.
I wish I lived on Blue Planet 2.
We are not going to turn this into a running joke.
Over at Blue Planet 2, Hillary is president. Dave Jackson likes our podcast. And nobody likes 3 billboards.
And Robert Mueller is investigating her. I just had to poke a little bit at there.
One of the things I really wanted to talk about actually is a movie that came out in 2016. It's an anime movie called Your Name. And it's a romantic drama about a high school boy in Tokyo and a high school girl in like a small town in Japan. And they swap bodies.
Ooh.
And I don't want to like explain anything more than that, because part of what makes the movie so special is discovering why it's happening and where the story goes from there. It is a really great movie. We were just really, really impressed by it. We watched it here in the house. It's on Amazon streaming right now. I think we paid to rent it, though. It's not free. And we're already talking about we need to see it again.
No kidding. Your Name?
It's called Your Name.
Which, is it a prequel or a sequel to Call Me by Your Name?
No.
Oh.
No, it is not even remotely related.
All right. Now that I think about it, what a weird thing that there are 2 movies with Your Name in it just a couple of years apart. How weird and particular is that sentence construction? And 2 movies have used it in the last 24 months. I don't know. Sorry.
I haven't seen Call Me by Your Name yet.
Neither have I.
I really want to. I just haven't made it happen yet. Maybe this week.
Don't know if I really do want to.
I
don't know. I'm just against it. I don't know. I will talk a little bit about, I was almost getting into Altered Carbon.
Okay.
Netflix's new big, luscious sci-fi detective story, but I could not make it through episode 1.
How far did you get?
40 minutes in.
That's twice what I got as far as about 20 minutes.
All right, talk to me. What did you feel about it? What
All right,
what
here's
were your
the
thoughts?
thing. I watched it and I was just like, it just seemed ugly and mean and violent, and I just don't have it in me right now to watch it.
Right.
Our friend of the show, AJ Muller, really likes it, which makes me feel like I need to at least. I don't like to bail that early. 20 minutes is not a lot of time.
Yeah.
So I feel like I should at least finish the episode. So I would not consider this any kind of review from me. I just
Definitely. Yeah, me too.
cannot. I'm just not in the right place for that show yet.
Yeah. No,
I think.
I definitely hear what you're talking about. There are friends that I tried to turn Breaking Bad onto. Or turn on to Breaking Bad back when it was spectacular, but it was also incredibly tense, incredibly grim and violent and crazy.
Oh, I was late to the Breaking Bad train because it was, it started the same time I had been diagnosed with cancer.
Exactly.
And I was like, I'm not going to watch a show about some dude with cancer. I have cancer.
Oh, that's right.
I also stopped watching like any medical show.
Wow.
Because I was like, oh, fuck this. Like, I don't want to like watch any of that stuff. Like, all I was watching was like baseball and like diners, drive-ins, and dives.
Parks and Rec, Community.
It's like all I could handle. Like, I was like, you have to be in the right frame of mind for stuff like that. And Altered Carbon is like that. It's very dark.
Yeah.
It's got interesting ideas from what I can tell from the 20 minutes. I was like, that's interesting, but I can't do it right now.
I agree with you, but I want to throw a blast from Dorking Out's past at you. Mm-hmm. Joel Kinnaman.
Yes.
He was in Suicide Squad. He was in The Killing, I believe. Yes. He was in the remake, the much maligned by me, remake of RoboCop.
Right.
This guy has a nearly perfect score of 1 on the Freddie Prinze Jr. scale of charisma.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot bring myself to give 2 shits about anything this guy is in. I don't know what it is. And I will admit, I
did like him in The Killing, actually.
I think The Killing was like one grim show too many for me, so I bailed on that halfway through the first season, and I think I am becoming that obnoxious friend who always talks about CrossFit when it comes to me writing my book. I have been really trying to work a lot more and write a lot more recently. So any trip, we've talked for the last year and a half about how difficult it is for television shows and movies to get any traction because there's so much other stuff to pay attention to.
Right.
And I am now down to the point where I'm not even watching the first full episode before I get out.
Yeah.
It's not fair to the Altered Carbon. So I guess, this might be a review. And our review is essentially, we didn't review this show. We didn't like it enough. But definitely your mileage may vary. Go watch it if you want to.
I might go back to it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I just can't right now. Like, with everything that's going on in the world and everything's so shitty.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I just can't handle a show like this right now.
Right. And
we've been watching a lot of the Orville right now in the set. That's about what we can handle here.
That makes sense. So is there anything else that you would like to dork out about? Anything else that you would like to hit before we make our announcements?
No. Let's make our announcements. What are our announcements? I'm excited.
Well, Sonia, I don't know how to begin a conversation as difficult as this one. But enough with the fake drama. No, there's no crazy announcements. I'm not leaving the show. I think there's a 70% chance Sonia's not leaving the show.
I'm not leaving the show.
What we are doing is, one of the things that we're doing with Dorking Out here is we're kind of running little experiments with how you put a podcast together, how you deal with running a podcast and what you do with it. And we've tried certain wacky things and things that we think are funny, things that we think are interesting, or a new way to peel the onion, shall we say. And actually, now that I say that, some of the things that we have tried have gone on to much more acclaim and much more success with other certain podcasts that we will discuss at a later time. But the onion is a hint. Anyway, so back in December, we decided what we're going to do is we're still going to have about the same amount of podcasts, but instead we're going to break it up over 3 episodes. So each episode will have one segment. Well, you know what? The reason you do experiments is because sometimes you find out things work and they're great and they're whatever, and sometimes you find out things, no, you know what? I don't think that worked. No. So we are adjusting a little bit. We're going to go back to twice a week, but instead what we're going to do is we're going to start having the show not be so anchored to timely, current pop culture. We're going to dive deep into the past and start pulling out stories that we truly do love, that we truly do find interesting things to talk about. We're going to try to bring on a lot of new interesting and engaging guests to talk about older shows or older movies, older shows, older pieces of pop culture. You've seen this already in our feed with our Last in the Mohicans and Big Trouble in Little China episodes. So essentially each week we're going to have one episode that is a new story that we're talking about or thinking about, and one episode that's older. And that is the big announcement that we're kind of altering the experiment that is the Dorking Out show again, just to see, and we're excited for it. We're one of the drawbacks of having a show that is wed to current pop culture is it is wed to current pop culture, and if it's if it's the weekend that 50 Shades Free comes out, well, have fun with all that.
Right.
So sometimes we're just, sometimes there are going to be weeks where it's like, fuck it, there's nothing that we like, there's nothing we find interesting. We watched 20 minutes of Altered Carbon, we're not talking about this. We got to talk about something. So sometimes it's Who Reviews the Reviewers. Sometimes it's The Black Panther, which is coming up very soon. So that's all that's going on. We're excited about it. We would love to hear your feedback. You know what? Actually,
and if you have shows or movies that you would like us to talk about,
let us. If you know what, I'll do you one better, Sonia.
Yes,
I will interrupt you and say the thing that basically
of course
you were
you
saying.
will. Yes, I'm sure you will.
This is the magaphone. Is that what it is? The manophone, where the man says it and people hear it.
Yes. Go ahead.
Shows or movies that you want to hear. B, you could be on the show talking about them. If you want to come on the show and talk about these things, we'll bring you on. So not only can you program what we talk about on the show, you can do some of the talking. If Sonia will let you get a word in edgewise.
Yes, I talk way too much. Everyone says that about me.
We will see.
I'm going to let you finish.
You know what? I have to admit, I am veering. I was going to say dangerously close to Kanye territory when it comes to my satisfaction with my own voice. But I have a suspicion that if a certain podcast rodeo or Dave Jackson were to review another episode of the story of this podcast, he would note that, holy shit, does Chris talk a lot. God damn, that guy just cannot get enough of the sound of his own voice.
I hope he reviews this episode. He should review an episode about us talking about him. I'll make sure to tweet it to him.
Sonia Mansfield, is there anything else that you would like? Is there anything you would like to say before?
Thanks for letting me talk for once.
Before I interrupt you again. You're welcome. Is it more condescending for me to say I'm sorry or for me to say you're welcome? Which is it?
Yes. Yes, it's always condescending.
That's true. You're right. You're right. You're right.
I'm just going to say
oh.
And goodbye.
Fuck you. Bye?